My name is Ben Carter, and I'm 54 years old. I live outside Asheville, North Carolina, where the Blue Ridge Mountains sit on the horizon like a promise you can see but never quite touch. I thought I'd already received the worst kind of phone call. 3 years ago, my wife Jenna's sister called to tell me there had been an accident, and Jenna didn't make it home. That call taught me grief arrives fast and stays longer than anyone admits. So when my phone rang at 5:12 a.m. on a Wednesday, I expected something ordinary. Wrong number, work problem, a spam call that slipped past the filter. Instead, the caller ID said, Marla. Marla was my father's wife, my stepmother, the woman who liked to say she saved my dad after my mom died, as if love was a rescue mission and my dad was a project. I answered with sleep still in my throat. Marla? Her voice sounded practiced, like she'd rehearsed the shape of sadness. Ben, I'm sorry to call so early. It's your father. I sat up, sheets twisting around my legs, the house quiet except for the refrigerator hum. What happened? A pause, then, he passed in his sleep last night. It was peaceful. The nurse said it was quick. The word passed floated for a second, unreal. My father, Ray Carter, was 82. He was stubborn and wiry, and the kind of man who replaced a faucet himself just to avoid paying someone. He'd slowed down, yes. He'd had pneumonia in the spring and moved temporarily into Ridgeway assisted living to regain strength. But dead? When? I asked. What time? After midnight, Marla said. Ben, I'm handling the arrangements. There's a memorial service on Friday. Friday. 2 days. Marla, I said slowly. That's fast. He didn't want a fuss, she replied, and the sadness slipped into urgency. He wanted it simple. I don't have the energy to drag this out. I forced air into my lungs. Where is he now? Which funeral home? Crawford & Sons, she said. Hendersonville. I was still trying to catch up to the idea of a service in 48 hours when she added, Ben, I'm telling you now so there's no drama later. Ray's paperwork is clear. The cabin, the house, the accounts, everything transfers to me. That's what he wanted. I'm sure you'll understand. My stomach tightened like it recognized danger before my mind did. Transfers to you? Marla, I'm his son. And I was his wife, she snapped, the softness gone. Ben, don't turn this into a fight. Your father hated conflict. Respect him. Then, quieter, like a warning she wanted to feel like advice. Don't call lawyers. Don't start trouble. We'll do this privately. That's what he wanted. The line went dead. I sat in the dark holding my phone, listening to my own breathing. Grief usually comes with a second wave, details, logistics, the collapse of routine. But what hit me instead was a cold, clean thought. Something is wrong. I've spent my whole life around concrete facts. I was a building inspector for 2 decades before I went into contracting. My job was to find what didn't line up, the tiny crack that tells you a wall will fail. Over time, you learn patterns. You learn what lies sound like when they wear polite clothes. My father didn't hate conflict. He hated dishonesty. He would argue all day if he thought someone was trying to cheat the truth. And he would never arrange a rushed memorial without calling me first, not if he had the ability to say my name. I walked to the kitchen and started the coffee maker because my body needed something normal to hold on to. Then I opened my phone and searched for Crawford & Sons Funeral Home. I called. A cheerful receptionist answered, Crawford & Sons, how may I help you? My name is Ben Carter, I said. I'm calling about my father, Raymond Carter. I was told he passed last night and your home is handling arrangements for Friday. Keys clicked. Raymond Carter, she repeated. Could you spell the last name? I did, more clicking. I'm sorry, she said, and the cheer drained from her voice into professional caution. I'm not seeing anyone under that name. Are you sure it was our location? Yes, I said. Hendersonville. I'm not finding him, she said again. Sometimes families use a middle name. No, I cut in, trying to keep my voice steady. Is there a memorial scheduled for Friday? Not for a Raymond Carter, she said. No, sir. I thanked her and ended the call. My coffee maker gurgled like it hadn't noticed the world shifting. If Marla lied about the funeral home, she lied about something else. I called my dad's cell. It went to voicemail on the second ring. Not disconnected, not a dead line, just unanswered. I called again. Voicemail again. Then I called Ridgeway Assisted Living. The front desk answered on the third ring. Ridgeway, this is Dawn. My name is Ben Carter, I said. My father, Raymond Carter, is a resident there. I was told he passed last night. I need confirmation. There was a pause, then Dawn's tone changed. Mr. Carter, your father is not deceased. My fingers tightened around the phone. He's not? No, Dawn said. He had breakfast at 7, physical therapy at 9:30. He's scheduled for a blood pressure check at 11. Relief hit first, sharp and dizzy. Then anger followed, hotter than coffee. Dawn, I said quietly, please do not mention this call to anyone, especially not my stepmother. Is she there right now? No, Dawn whispered after a rustle like she covered the receiver. She hasn't been by all week. Has anyone requested paperwork about him? Discharge forms? Another pause. There's a request in the file for copies of his financial responsibility documents, Dawn said. But that's normal. It isn't, I said. Please lock his file. If anyone asks for anything, tell them you need my written approval as next of kin. Sir, Dawn said gently. His wife is listed. I understand, I said. I'm on my way. I didn't call Marla back. I didn't text. I didn't give her the courtesy of a warning that her lie had tripped its own wire. Instead, I called my daughter Lily. Lily is 26 and works as an ICU nurse in Charlotte. She inherited my ability to stay calm when things get ugly. When she answered, her voice was sleepy but alert. Dad? Lily, I said. Marla called and said Grandpa died. He didn't. He's alive at Ridgeway. A beat of silence. Then Lily said, steady, Okay. So she lied. What's your plan? I'm driving there, I said. And then I'm calling a lawyer. Good, Lily replied. And Dad, don't go alone if you think this is dangerous. I'm not scared, I said. Dad, she said. I didn't say scared. I said dangerous. Those are different. She was right. Anger makes you careless. I'll call you when I get there, I promised. The drive to Ridgeway took 40 minutes. The mountains looked calm. The roads were empty. My mind wasn't. Every mile I kept hearing Marla's words. Don't call lawyers. Don't start trouble. We'll do this privately. That's what he wanted. It sounded less like grief and more like instructions. At Ridgeway, I walked in and asked for my father. Dawn recognized my name instantly. Her eyes flicked around like the walls might be listening. He's in the common room, she said, playing cards. In the common room, my dad sat at a table with 3 other residents, a deck of cards in his hands. He looked thinner than the man who taught me to throw a baseball, but his posture was straight. He laughed at something one of the men said, and the sound of it hit me like sunlight. Dad, I said. He turned. For a split second, his eyes didn't register me. Then his face opened into recognition. Well, he said, look who finally decided to visit. I crossed the room and gripped his shoulder. I got a call, I said. Marla said you died. My father's smile vanished. His eyes sharpened. She said, what? Before I could answer, a nurse with a badge that read Katie approached. Mr. Carter, she said to my dad, your wife called this morning. She asked for your discharge papers again. My dad's head snapped up. My discharge papers? Katie hesitated. She said you were leaving this week. My father looked at me and I saw the old Ray Carter in his face. the man who could smell a bad deal the moment it walked into the room. "Ben," he said low, "what's going on?" "We're going to your room," I said. "Now." In his room, I told him everything. The call, the fake funeral home, the memorial threat about inheritance. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he stared at his hands like they were foreign. "I knew she was pushing," he said finally. "I knew she was anxious, but this?" He reached to the bedside table and pulled out a manila envelope. "She brought these," he said, 2 weeks ago. Said it was paperwork for Medicaid planning so I could qualify for better coverage. I opened the envelope and skimmed the top page. It wasn't Medicaid. It was a quitclaim deed transferring my dad's cabin near Lake Lure to a company called Blue Ridge Holdings, LLC. Under that was a durable power of attorney naming Marla as attorney-in-fact. Under that was a healthcare proxy, all ready for my father's signature. My mouth went dry. "Dad," I said, "did you sign any of this?" "No," he said, voice rough. "I told her I wanted you to see it. She got mad. Then she got sweet. Then she said I was tired and we'd talk later." My father's eyes filled with anger and something like shame. "Ben," he said quietly, "I married her 8 years ago. I thought she loved me." I sat on the edge of the bed. "Dad," I said, "we need to protect you right now." He nodded once. "Do what you have to do." I stepped into the hallway and called an attorney I'd used once for a property dispute. "Angela Park." She answered immediately, crisp. "Then Carter, what's up?" I gave her the short version. Father alive, wife says dead. Pushing deed and POA. Memorial Friday. I need help now.
Angela didn't hesitate.
"Do not let him leave that facility with her," she said. "Do not sign anything. Tell Ridgeway you're disputing document access. I'll meet you there in 2 hours. 2 hours felt like a lifetime, but it was something. With the staff, I kept my tone calm. I didn't accuse them. I just told them there was a serious family dispute, and my father requested that no paperwork be released and no discharge occur without his explicit consent and my involvement. Dawn printed visit logs. The nurse manager added a note to his file. When Angela arrived, she looked at the quitclaim deed and her eyes hardened. "This is not asset planning," she said. "This is asset transfer, and that LLC, it's a shell. We need facts, but we also need to control the narrative." She looked at my father. "Mr. Carter, are you willing to say, on record, that you did not sign these documents and you do not authorize your wife to act on your behalf?" My dad's jaw tightened. "Yes," he said, "in any language you want." Angela nodded. "Good. Ben, we're filing an emergency petition today to restrict Marla's access and to appoint a temporary medical decision-maker until the court reviews. And we're calling law enforcement. But first, I want you to call Marla. Put it on speaker. Ask simple questions. Let her talk." My stomach turned, but I did it. Marla answered on the second ring like she'd been waiting. "Ben?" "Marla," I said evenly. "I called Crawford and Sons. They have no record of my father." A pause. Then a faint, almost amused exhale. "Of course you did." "Where is he?" I asked. "He's at Ridgeway," she said, as if she was offering me a gift. "So he's not dead," I said. "Alive in body," she snapped. "Not in mind. You know what I meant." "That's not what you said," I replied. Marla's voice sharpened. "Ben, I don't have time for this. The memorial is Friday. People have been told it's done." "A memorial for someone alive," I said. She hissed. "He's gone, Ben." "You've been in denial for months. I'm the one here. I'm the one handling it." Angela mouthed, "Paperwork." "Why did you bring him a quitclaim deed?" I asked. Silence. Then Marla said quickly, "To qualify him for care, assets disqualify you. That's how it works." "Why Blue Ridge Holdings?" I pressed. "It's temporary," she said. "My friend's accountant set it up. It's just to hold the cabin." My father leaned toward the phone. His voice was calm, clear, and dangerous. "Marla," he said, "what did you tell my son?" A stunned pause. "Ray?" Marla whispered. "How?" "I'm alive," my dad said, "and I'm listening." Her voice trembled for a second, then hardened. "You shouldn't be on the phone," she said. "You get confused." "I'm not confused," he replied. "I'm disappointed." Marla's composure cracked. "Fine," she spat. "You want the truth? I'm trying to keep us afloat. Bills don't care about your pride. Things changed, prices changed, and my son needs help." There it was. "Kyle?" I said. Marla exhaled like his name hurt. "Yes, Kyle. He made mistakes, but he's family." "And so am I," my dad said quietly. Marla ignored him. "Kyle is in trouble," she said. "The kind where people stop being polite, the kind where they show up, the kind where they don't care that you're old." My father went pale. "You used my life to fix your boy's mess," he said. "Don't act righteous," she snapped. "You have money sitting there like it's a museum exhibit. Meanwhile, my son—" "If you'd told me," my dad said, and his voice cracked with real emotion, "I would have helped." "No," Marla cut in. "You would have asked questions. You would have said no. You would have made me choose." "And you chose him," I said. "I'm choosing survival," she said. "Friday is happening. After that, everything settles. Assets move. This conversation is over." She hung up. My father stared at the wall like it had betrayed him too. Angela's tone stayed calm, but her eyes were fierce. "Okay," she said. "We have enough to move."
We're filing emergency paperwork today, and we're contacting a detective in the elder fraud unit. The people show up part makes this a safety issue. My father swallowed. "Police," he said, like it didn't belong in his life. "Ray," Angela said gently, "she planned a memorial for you while you're alive. She tried to transfer property. That is fraud." My dad looked at me, wet-eyed. "Ben," he whispered, "I don't want Lily dragged into this." I squeezed his hand. "Dad," I said, "the only way to protect Lily is to end this now." That afternoon was a blur of forms and phone calls. Angela filed an emergency petition. Ridgway tightened access. Dawn printed call logs and visit logs. I called Lily and told her the truth. She didn't cry. She got practical. "Move Grandpa," she said, "somewhere she can't reach." With Angela's help, we transferred my dad to Asheville Ridge Medical Suites the next morning, a facility that required visitor codes and had clearer oversight. We didn't tell Marla. We let her keep believing her plan was still running on schedule. Because Friday was still coming. Marla had invited people. She had told them my father was dead. And if liars love closed rooms, then crowds are the one place they can't quietly rewrite the story. Detective Ruiz from Buncombe County met Angela and me that Thursday. He listened without judgment, then asked one question. "Where is the money going?" Angela had already started tracing. My dad's accounts showed unusual withdrawals, checks written to Blue Ridge Holdings, transfers with Kyle's name in the memo line. It wasn't a conviction yet, but it was a trail. "We need an overt act," Ruiz said. "A filing, a forged signature, a transfer attempt." "We'll get it," Angela said. Thursday night, Marla called again. "Ben," she said, sugary, "don't do something you can't undo. The family is gathering. The church has arranged music. You can't embarrass us." "He's alive," I said. Marla's sugar melted into steel. "If you ruin Friday," she said, "you're going to regret it." "Is that a threat?" I asked. "It's a reality," she said. "Kyle is not patient." Then she hung up. That night, Ruiz stationed deputies near Marla's townhouse and the small chapel in Hendersonville where the memorial would take place. Not to storm in, just to be ready. Friday arrived bright and cruelly beautiful.
The memorial was scheduled for 2 p.m. at a small chapel off a quiet road. Lily drove up from Charlotte and stayed with me. She hugged my dad and whispered, "We've got you." My dad nodded like he was storing the words for later. At 1:30, Lily and I brought my dad to the back entrance of the chapel. He wore a navy blazer and a crisp white shirt. He looked older than he had last year, but he looked like himself, alert, present, alive. Inside, the chapel was full. Neighbors, a few cousins, people from my dad's volunteer group. And on the front table, draped in white cloth, sat an urn with a framed photo of my father from a fishing trip 5 summers ago. An empty urn. A prop. Marla stood in front wearing black, eyes red like she'd practiced. Kyle sat in the second row, tall, restless, jaw tight, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit. I'd met him twice in 8 years. Both times he smiled too hard and asked too many questions about the cabin view and property taxes. The pastor began with a gentle voice. A hymn played. People sniffled. Marla dabbed her eyes. Then she stood to speak. "Ray was the love of my life," she began, voice trembling convincingly. "He was steady, loyal, and in his final months he trusted me to care for him, to protect his wishes, to keep things peaceful." Kyle stared at the ceiling like he was bored. Marla continued, "Ray didn't want conflict. He wanted everything handled quietly. Before he passed, he made sure it was all clear. There will be no disputes. That is what he wanted." Her eyes found me in the back. "Ben understands," she said, as if we'd rehearsed it. "Ben will tell you. Ray wanted me to manage the estate so there would be no chaos." Angela had told me to wait until the lie fully formed. Let it hang. Then I stood. "Marla," I said loudly, "tell them where Ray is." A ripple moved through the room. Heads turned. Marla's face tightened. "Ben," she said, still performing calm, "this is not the time." "Where's the death certificate?" I asked. "Where's his body?" Kyle's head snapped up. His eyes narrowed. Marla's voice sharpened. "Ben, you're grieving. Sit down." "No," I said. "You're lying." Gasps, murmurs. The pastor looked stunned. Marla lifted her chin. "Ray is gone," she said, and the tremble fell away. "Gone in every way that matters." "Then you won't mind if he says hello," I said. I nodded toward the side door. The door opened. My father stepped into the chapel. For a second, the room couldn't process it. Reality doesn't rewrite itself politely, it fights. Then someone cried out. Someone else started sobbing. A cousin in the front row stood so fast her chair toppled. My dad walked down the aisle slowly, cane tapping, eyes fixed on Marla. Detective Ruiz and a uniformed deputy followed a few steps behind. Marla's face went white. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Kyle stood up abruptly, panic flashing, then anger. He took a step like he might block my dad, then froze when he saw the deputy. Ruiz spoke, calm and clear. "Ma'am, we need to talk to you." Marla shook her head. This is a mistake," she stammered. "Ray is confused." My father stopped at the front, beside the urn that pretended to hold him. He looked at the photo. He looked at the urn. Then he looked at Marla with a grief so deep it made his voice quiet. "You buried me while I was still breathing," he said. Marla's eyes filled. "Ray, Don't," he said. "Just don't." He turned to the room. "I'm sorry," my dad said, voice stronger now. "I'm sorry for the shock. But you were invited here under a lie. That urn is empty." A low murmur rolled through the chapel. My dad continued. "For weeks, my wife has pressured me to sign away property and authority. She told people I was dead. She tried to move my cabin into a company I did not authorize. She did it because her son is in trouble." Kyle's face twisted. "You don't get to...
The deputy stepped forward. "Sir, sit down." Kyle's jaw clenched. He sat, vibrating. My dad looked at Marla. "If you had told me the truth," he said, "I would have helped. That you chose deception. You chose to erase me." Marla's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, she looked like a woman who'd run out of choices. Then she straightened, defensive. "I was trying to save my son," she said. "You think you're better than me?" My dad nodded once. "I think my life has value," he said. "That's what I think." Ruiz said, "Mrs. Carter, we have an active investigation into attempted fraudulent transfer and financial exploitation. We need you to come with us." Marla turned and looked at Kyle, eyes wild. "Kyle," she whispered. Kyle's face hardened. He took a half step backward, calculating. Then he bolted. Chairs scraped, people shouted. Kyle shoved past stunned mourners and ran for the back exit. The deputy moved immediately, but Kyle was young and fast. He hit the back door and flung it open. 2 deputies were waiting outside. Kyle stopped like he'd hit a wall. For a second, he looked like he might fight. Then he saw the tasers, the calm certainty, and his shoulders dropped. They cuffed him in the doorway. The chapel became noise, crying, whispering, phones raised. The pastor tried to speak, but no one listened. Ruiz guided Marla toward the side. Marla didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She just looked at my father one last time and said quietly, "I didn't think you'd fight." My dad's face was wet with tears he didn't wipe. "That's the part that breaks me," he said.
You didn't know me at all. After the chapel emptied, Lily and I drove my dad back to Asheville. He stared out the window the entire way. Sometimes silence is where grief hides when it's too big for words. In the weeks that followed, the truth came out in layers. Kyle had built massive gambling debt through online sports betting and credit from a local bookie who didn't do patience. Marla tried to cover it with her savings, then credit cards, then loans. When she ran out of options, she looked at my dad's cabin and his accounts like a life raft. The LLC documents had been generated by a shady financial consultant Kyle found online, a man who promised he could shield assets and move fast. In reality, he was a boiler room scammer who handed out templates and paired clients with a notary willing to look the other way. The notary's logs didn't match. The signatures were inconsistent. There were attempted filings with the county clerk that didn't go through because Angela had filed an emergency notice first. One filing included Marla's claim that Ray Carter was deceased, a statement that turned a family lie into a criminal document. Marla's memorial wasn't just theater. It was part of a pressure campaign. She had called relatives to confirm wishes, asked for signatures on consent forms, tried to create social proof so fewer people would ask questions while paperwork moved. It didn't work. Kyle was charged with attempted fraud and conspiracy to commit financial exploitation. The online consultant was charged when investigators traced emails and payments. The notary lost their commission and faced charges. Marla was charged with attempted fraudulent transfer and filing false statements. Marla's lawyer tried to paint her as a desperate mother under duress. The truth was more complicated. She was desperate, and she made choices that treated my father like an asset. Desperation explains behavior. It doesn't erase consequences. My dad met with Angela, and for the first time since my mom died 15 years ago, made a full estate plan that assumed people could be tempted. He put the cabin into a trust. He gave Lily and me protections. He also did something I didn't expect. He set aside a small amount for restitution and therapy costs if Marla cooperated. "Why?" I asked one night on my porch. My dad stared into the dark. "Because I loved her," he said. "Love doesn't evaporate just because someone fails you, but neither does accountability." Marla took a plea deal. She avoided prison in exchange for restitution, probation, and mandatory counseling. Kyle did not. He served time, enough to force a reset whether he wanted it or not. My dad attended one hearing and refused to look at him. "I'm done being used," my dad told me afterward. There were quieter resolutions, too. Lily started volunteering with an elder advocacy group through her hospital. She said she couldn't unsee how easily paperwork becomes a weapon. Dawn at Ridgeway wrote my dad a note. "I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you're seen." My dad kept it in his wallet. My father moved into a small apartment near me, not because he couldn't live alone, but because he didn't want isolation to be vulnerability again. Twice a week, he went to a woodworking shop and made simple things: stools, birdhouses, a small bench for my porch, like building a life back with his hands. As for me, I stopped believing the myth that family problems should stay inside the family. That rule only protects the person causing harm. If there's a moral in what happened, it isn't a catchy quote. It's heavier and more useful. Verify before you grieve. Question before you sign. And don't let someone's urgency steal your clarity. Real love doesn't rush you through loss to reach money on the other side. When someone talks about inheritance before they talk about the person, pay attention. When someone tries to keep everything private, ask who benefits from your silence. And if your instincts whisper that something doesn't line up, don't ignore them. Cracks don't heal by pretending the wall is fine. My father didn't die that week, but a version of his life did. The version where he assumed love would always be honest. What replaced it was harsher, but safer. A life where trust exists, but it's backed by boundaries. And when I look at the mountains now, I still see promise. I just also see the truth. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of protection.